The Chicago Bears have officially locked in their final 53-man roster, and, as expected, there's no shortage of talking points. From surprise cuts to lingering injury concerns, and even a few potential gems who made the team against all odds. This roster rollout has stirred up the fan base and set the stage for what could be one of the most scrutinized seasons in recent Bears history. But what really jumps out right away is the state of the running back room. And let's be honest, it's not a pretty picture. Right now, the Bears technically have 3 running backs on the roster, but only one is fully healthy. That's DeAndre Swift. Roscoe Johnson is banged up, Kalmanangi is sidelined, and Travis Homer is heading to short-term injured reserve, which guarantees he's missing at least the first 4 games. That leaves Chicago entering the season with their entire ground game resting on Swift's shoulders. Not exactly the depth you want to see this close to kickoff. What's even more concerning is how little clarity we've gotten from offensive coordinator Ben Johnson. When asked about the status of his running back room, his answer was vague at best, offering no real indication of how the Bears plan to handle the situation moving forward. And for a team trying to protect and develop a rookie quarterback, this lack of backfield stability is a massive red flag. To make matters worse, there are rumors that wide receiver DJ Moore had to take snaps at running back during practice just to fill the gap. That should never be the case heading into the start of the regular season. There's still time to make some roster adjustments, waiver claims, practice squad moves, maybe even a trade. But 12 days out from week 1, the Bears are flirting with disaster at a position that's supposed to help balance an offense led by a rookie signal caller. Now, while we're talking about injuries and returns, there's some good news on the defensive side of the ball. Cornerback Jalen Johnson has officially been removed from a non-football injury list. That's a major plus. He's still not a lock for week 1, but signs are pointing toward him suiting up against the Minnesota Vikings. And for a defense that's already fighting to prove it can take a leap this year, getting Jalen back in the fold could be critical, especially with the kind of versatility he might be allowed to show under new defensive coordinator Dennis Allen. In the past, Johnson's role was pretty simple: shut down one side of the field. Now, he may have the freedom to roam a bit more, take on different matchups, and showcase the full extent of his talent. If he can stay healthy and adapt to a more dynamic role, Jalen Johnson could be poised for a career-defining season. Speaking of surprises on the roster, the Bears made the unexpected decision to carry 3 quarterbacks into the regular season. Caleb Williams is obviously the starter, no debate there, but behind him, you've got Tyson Bagent and the veteran Case Keenum. Now, Bagent earning that QB2 spot isn't too shocking. He had a strong preseason, he knows the system, and the coaching staff clearly believes in his upside. But keeping Keenum as the third-string guy? That raised a few eyebrows. The original thought was that Chicago would stash one of the backups on the practice squad, but this decision shows that they value Keenum's veteran presence, especially when it comes to mentoring a young star like Caleb. Keenum played a key role in C.J. Stroud's development over in Houston, and the Bears are clearly hoping he can have a similar influence here. But maybe the most exciting storyline in terms of player development is the emergence of undrafted rookie wide receiver Jada Walker. This guy came into camp with zero expectations from the outside, but he just kept showing up and making plays. Now he's earned himself a spot on the final 53. It's rare for an undrafted player to break through, especially in a wide receiver room as loaded as Chicago's. But Walker did just that. He outperformed Tyler Scott, he beat out Miles Boykin, and now he's joining a receiving core that already includes DJ Moore, Rome Oduns, Luther Burden, and Olamide Zakos. This could be one of the most talented and versatile groups the Bears have fielded in years, and having a guy like Walker as a depth piece who's hungry to prove himself, that's a huge bonus. On the defensive line, the Bears are rolling with 5 edge rushers, including Montez Sweat, Austin Booker, Daniel Hardy, and yes, Dominique Robinson, who somehow managed to hold onto a roster spot despite a pretty underwhelming stretch in his young career. His inclusion raised some questions, especially when you consider that third-round pick Zach Pickens didn't make the final cut. But let's be real, Pickens hasn't exactly lit up either. And when it comes down to it, Dominique Robinson showed just enough during camp and preseason to convince the coaching staff that he's worth a longer look. Ben Johnson and Dennis Allen have both spoken positively about him since early in training camp. That doesn't mean he's locked into a role. Far from it. But if he can recapture the flashes we saw from him as a rookie coming off the bench, he could end up being a solid rotational piece. Austin Booker, on the other hand, is someone Bears fans should be genuinely excited about. He turned heads throughout the preseason and looks like a player who could quickly grow into a bigger role if he keeps developing. That's the kind of upside you want to see from your young defensive talent. In terms of other roster decisions, the injured reserve list is already filling up. Travis Homer is out. Linebacker Amen Ogbongbemiga is out. Both are designated to return, so there's hope they'll be back later this season. Zay Frazier, unfortunately, is on the non-football injury list due to a personal issue that will keep him out for the entire year. That's a tough loss, especially since Dennis Allen was reportedly very high on Frazier's potential. On the linebacker front, Carl Jones makes the team as the fifth man in that group. It's a solid depth piece, but the IR situation will definitely be something to monitor as the season gets underway. Now, let's talk about one of the more polarizing figures on the roster bubble, Kieran Amegadjie. He survives the cut, at least for now. He was once in the mix for the left tackle job, but that competition has clearly swung in favor of Braxton Jones, who retains the starting role. Kieran has slipped down the depth chart behind both Azzi Trapilo and Theo Benedict, and his time could be limited if his development doesn't accelerate quickly. The Bears are clearly still invested in his growth, but this might be the last season he gets that benefit of the doubt. It's a prove-it year for him, no question. There's also the potential for some waiver wire action before the season kicks off. The Bears have the 10th spot in the waiver order, and there are several intriguing names out there that could help bolster some thin position groups. One name that jumps out is Aldrick Estime, the 4. Another player worth watching is defensive end Isaiah Foskey, a former second-round pick out of Notre Dame who never quite found his footing with the Saints. No sacks, no real production to speak of, but there's still untapped potential there. He played in 27 games over 2 seasons, and with the Bears coaching staff looking to build depth and competition across the board, Foskey could be a low-risk, high-reward addition.
At running back again, there is also Devon Martinez, a 7th-round rookie out of Miami. Is a big, bruising runner with back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons in college. He didn't light it up in the preseason, but he flashed enough to be worth a flyer if Chicago wants more bodies in that room. And honestly, with the current injury situation, they kind of have it too. On the defensive side, Vinny Bishop is another interesting waiver target. Is a smaller corner at 5'9", but has got NFL experience and even started 4 games last season. He held quarterbacks to a 57% completion rate when targeted and allowed a passer rating under 60. With question marks around Hylon Johnson's health and depth concerns behind him, Bishop could be a smart addition. And finally, at linebacker, Nick Jackson is a name to watch. He led the Buccaneers in tackles during the preseason with 18, added 2 sacks, and even had an interception. Is an undrafted rookie, but has got that dog in him, and the Bears could definitely use a more choice at linebacker, especially with Amen out and TJ Edwards dealing with his own nagging issues. One of the biggest storylines coming out of this roster finalization isn't just who made the team, but how this entire foundation supports one man, Caleb Williams. The pressure on this rookie quarterback is enormous, not just because he was taken with the number 1 overall pick, but because he is entering a franchise that's been historically starved for quarterback excellence. And while all eyes will be on Caleb for what he does on the field, a fair share of the spotlight is also being cast on everything he does off the field, sometimes unfairly so. Let's be real, the criticism of Caleb Williams has gone well beyond his reads, accuracy, or footwork. People are out here talking about his fingernails, his fashion, his personality, anything they can spin into a narrative. And in many ways, that's just the price of being the face of a franchise, especially one like Chicago, where the weight of past failures is always looming overhead. But even with all that noise, one thing stands out: Caleb shows up every single day and works. As himself. Don't flinch, and don't pretend to be something is not just to satisfy a few media hot takes or social media opinions. It's got the type of quiet confidence that you need in a guy who's supposed to be the lone-abided answer at quarterback. And you could see it during camp. You could see it in the way he handled himself in the preseason. It's not rattled. Not by the critics. Not by the expectations. Not by the shadow of a franchise that's never truly developed a star at his position. Rome Odunze, one of the team's most promising videos and someone was going to be directly tied to Caleb's success, spoke about the criticism surrounding his quarterback. His message was clear: Caleb gets hot because he is himself and because he is the number one pick. That combination makes him an easy target. But within that locker room, among the guys who go to war with him, there is nothing but respect. They see the work. They see the leadership. They see the guy was trying to win, not trend. And that matters more than any headline. Still, this isn't just about how Caleb carries himself, it's about what is going to do on the field, and whether he can start this era of Bears football the right way. Because here is the truth: if the Bears come out flat to start the year, if they stumble out of the gate and fall into an early ole, things are going to get loud in Chicago, and not in a good way. This fanbase has been patient for long enough. Another slow start, another wasted season, and people are going to start asking serious questions, not just about the roster, but about the direction of the organization itself. That's why the first few games of this season are so important. There is no margin for error. With a week 5 bye looming early, going 0-3 out of the gate could mean heading into the break with a winless record, and let's be honest, that's the kind of spiral you don't recover from. The Bears have to come out swinging. Caleb has to be sharp. The offensive line has to hold up. The defense needs to prove that it can carry its weight. There is no more room for excuses. This team has talent, it has direction, and it has leadership. Now, it needs results. And speaking of leadership, Ben Johnson's approach to managing this team is already becoming one of the most encouraging things heading into the season. When asked about Braxton Jones returning the starting job at left tackle, Johnson's response was firm but fair: they like what they have, but no job is guaranteed. If the performance isn't there, changes will be made. That's exactly the type of accountability this franchise has needed. For too long, the Bears have held on to players or coaching decisions out of loyalty or stubbornness. Not anymore. Ben Johnson is making it clear: if you're not getting the job done, someone else will get a shot. And let's not sugarcoat it, Braxton Jones has a lot to prove. He's at his moments, sure, but his weaknesses are still on display. The bull rush still gives him problems. The same technical issues that plagued him before are showing up again. If those don't get corrected quickly, you better believe the Bears are going to pivot, and they're already preparing for that possibility. They tried Theo Benedict at left tackle in camp. They got at Cietrapilo as a depth option. They didn't keep Kirana Megadje used for fun, they want competition. And honestly, competition is what should drive this entire team forward. Look across the offensive line. Darnell Wright is locked in on the right side. The interior has been revamped with Jonah Jackson, Joe Tooney, and Drew Dalman, a trio that brings power, smarts, and experience. This isn't some patchwork lines thrown together at the last minute. It's been carefully constructed, and now the expectation is simple: protect Caleb. Give him time to operate. Let him make his reads, work through his progressions, and get the ball to playmakers. Because make no mistake, this offense is built to attack. With the J. Moore, Rome Odunze, Loser Burden, and Jade Walker on the outside, the weapons are there. The question is whether the protection and the quarterback play can match that level of talent. But even with all the excitement surrounding this offense, there is still a long road ahead. Caleb Williams is going to have to grow fast. That means learning how to read NFL defenses at speed. That means making the right decisions under pressure. That means trusting the pocket when it holds and escaping when it collapses. That means getting the That's W to silence the doubters is to win. Perform on Sundays, and everything else fades into the background. And there's reason to believe Caleb can handle it. Has shown maturity beyond his years. Has absorbed the playbook, built chemistry with his receivers, and responded well to coaching. His teammates respect him. His coaches trust him. And his talent is undeniable. That's the foundation. Now it's about execution. Because the first few weeks of this season are going to define how this team is viewed, not just in Chicago, but across the entire league. This is the moment where culture meets pressure. Where preparation meets expectation. The Bears didn't build this team overnight. This roster has been shaped over multiple off-seasons with a clear vision: get younger, faster, more dynamic. Add weapons. Add leadership. Add versatility. And now that the core is in place, it's time to go out and prove that the rebuild wasn't just about getting better, it was about becoming a contender. But let's not forget, this team isn't just riding on Caleb's shoulders. The defense has just as much to prove. With Montez Sweat now in the fold, the pass rush has to be better. The secondary, led by Jaylon Johnson and Kyle Gordon, needs to tighten up. The linebackers, especially with injuries and inconsistencies, have to hold the middle together. If the defense can't hold leads or generate takeaways, Caleb's job becomes exponentially harder. That's why balance is so crucial. This can't be a team that wins or loses solely based on one man's play. It has to be a team effort, from the front office to the coaching staff to every man on the field. And part of that effort has to come through in discipline. Smart football. Penalties killed the Bears last season. Missed assignments. Poor communication. Those things have to be cleaned up if this team is serious about taking the next step. Talent isn't enough. You need execution. You need consistency. You need grit. And maybe most importantly, you need accountability, the kind of accountability that starts with the head coach and filters all the way down to the final man on the depth chart. That's why this season feels different. There is a new tone. A new energy. It's not about hype, it's about doing the work. And the Bears, for the first time in a long time, seem ready to do just that. So now it's up to them to prove that this isn't just another false start. That Caleb Williams really is the answer. That this coaching staff really does have the vision. That this roster, with all its use and promise, is ready to compete. Because the schedule isn't going to what? The NFC North isn't going to show mercy. And the fanbase isn't going to settle for anything less than progress. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on our Chicago Bears. And don't be shy, drop your thoughts on the news in the comments below.
The sports world woke up today to a shock that no one could have truly anticipated, and the ripple effect of this news is already dominating every conversation from talk shows to online forums. The Chicago Bears, an organization long searching for the missing piece in their relentless pursuit of relevancy and championships, have reportedly pulled off one of the most staggering moves in recent NFL memory. According to multiple insiders and whispers that refuse to die down, the Bears have secured none other than Josh Allen, the superstar quarterback of the Buffalo Bills, in a move that feels equal parts unbelievable and inevitable. For years, fans of the Bears have watched their team struggle to find a franchise quarterback, a role that has often defined the success or failure of teams across the league. Meanwhile, Josh Allen's reputation as a powerful, athletic, and dynamic leader under center has soared to near mythic status, making him one of the most untouchable players in the sport. And yet, here we are, with sources suggesting that the Chicago Bears have stepped into the spotlight and stolen a headline so massive that it almost feels fabricated, though the chorus of voices repeating the rumor is growing louder by the hour. As speculation spreads like wildfire, the immediate questions are both obvious and layered with intrigue. How did this happen, and what could have possibly led the Bills to even entertain the idea of parting ways with the face of their franchise? Josh Allen has been seen as the foundation of Buffalo's modern identity, a quarterback who revitalized the city's hope and brought them to the brink of Super Bowl contention. To imagine him leaving Orchard Park and suiting up in the navy and orange of Chicago feels surreal, almost like an alternate reality constructed for shock value. Yet, insiders whisper of tension behind the scenes, of philosophical differences between the coaching staff and front office, and of a potential fatigue in the organization's inability to take the final step toward a championship. The Bears, on the other hand, have resources, an ambitious management group, and a burning need for a quarterback who can not only lead on Sundays but redefine the culture of the entire franchise. This rumored move, therefore, is being described as both a gamble and a calculated attempt to rewrite decades of heartbreak in Chicago. If the reports are true, the magnitude of the trade package that Chicago would have been required to assemble boggles the mind and is already a subject of furious debate among analysts. Draft picks, established players, and perhaps even entire strategic shifts must have been placed on the table to pry Josh Allen away from Buffalo, a team that has so deeply intertwined his name with its identity that separation seems almost sacrilegious. For the Bears, however, this is exactly the sort of bold maneuver that signals a new era, an admission that incremental change is no longer enough. Fans of Chicago have endured a carousel of quarterbacks, a history marked by fleeting promise and crushing disappointment, and this rumored acquisition could be the antidote to years of suffering. The thought of Allen launching passes in Soldier Field, braving the wind and cold of the Windy City with his trademark grit, is the kind of vision that instantly electrifies a fan base and terrifies opponents. Yet, it also raises the stakes to a level almost unfathomable, because when you trade for a player of Allen's stature, failure is not just disappointing, it is catastrophic. Around the league, the reactions are as divided as they are intense, with some observers praising the Bears for displaying unprecedented ambition, while others accuse them of reckless desperation. The Buffalo faithful, if these rumors are even partially true, are understandably in shock, many clinging to disbelief and demanding clarity from their team's leadership. How could the Bills allow the cornerstone of their rise to be lured away? And what message does this send to a fan base that has endured decades of heartbreak only to finally glimpse a golden era? Meanwhile, Chicago fans are buzzing with hope, their imaginations racing with the possibility of pairing Allen's arm strength with a growing roster of young talent, creating a potential contender overnight. The national media, always hungry for a story of seismic proportions, has latched onto this rumor like wildfire, speculating endlessly about motivations, details, and the potential domino effect it could have on the NFL landscape. Rival teams are watching carefully as well, recognizing that the balance of power in the league could shift dramatically depending on whether this story proves to be true or remains a tantalizing whisper that never materializes. In the end, whether this turns out to be reality or the most elaborate rumor to grip the sports world in recent memory, one thing is already clear. The Chicago Bears and Josh Allen have created a storm of speculation that shows no signs of calming. Fans are refreshing news feeds. Analysts are dissecting every possible angle, and the league itself feels momentarily suspended in a state of anticipation. If the Bears truly have landed Allen, the implications are monumental, potentially reshaping not just their own trajectory, but the very hierarchy of the NFL. If, however, the story is proven false, it still speaks volumes about the hunger of Bears fans and the desperation of the media for a storyline of redemption and transformation. For now, the rumor persists, as stubborn and unrelenting as the Chicago wind, and until official word arrives from either camp, the imagination of football fans will continue to run wild. Whatever the outcome, this moment has already cemented itself in the lore of sports gossip, a headline that refuses to fade, and a conversation that will be remembered as one of the great what-ifs of modern football history. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Chicago Bears, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.